Hey there, fight fans. It's John Pollock here with you, and this is Fight News Now Extra. We're chatting today's news with John Ramdine and Robin Black, including a welterweight rematch that has been signed for August. Another injury affects the UFC 161 card, and Chael Sonnen sets his sights on another Brazilian fighter. It was reported by Globo on Sunday that UFC light heavyweight Antonio Rogério Nogueira is off of the June 15th UFC 161 card in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where he was scheduled to fight Mauricio Shogun Rua in a rematch from their 2005 bout in Pride. The report cites a herniated disc in the back of Nogueira as the reason he is off the card, and it is the fourth time that Nogueira has had to pull out of a bout during his UFC career. UFC officials are now seeking a replacement to fight Shogun on 2 weeks' notice. Chael Sonnen sent out a tweet on Sunday night indicating he would like to fight Shogun. Sonnen's name has been discussed for Wanderlei Silva to fight in August, but Silva has recently stated he won't be ready to fight until December. And the UFC has announced a welterweight rematch between Carlos Condit and Martin Kampmann that will go down on August the 28th for the UFC's second live card on FS1 from Indianapolis, Indiana. The two fought in April of 2009 in Condit's UFC debut when he came over from the WEC and lost a narrow split decision to Kampmann, and both men are coming off of losses to Johnny Hendricks in each of their last fights. And we're here with John Ramdine and Robin Black. And first of all, a rematch between Martin Kampmann, who's pretty much been MIA in the busy welterweight division, has not fought since November of last year when he fought Johnny Hendricks, against Carlos Condit, a fight that the first time around, a very, very close fight in 2009.
Yeah, I love the fight because the first fight was so close. It was action-packed. You have two guys that really deliver every single time they step inside of the cage. I just don't know if we need to see this fight when there's so many other fights in the welterweight division. Give me Martin Kampmann versus Nick Diaz. Give me Martin.
He's retired.
He's not retired. He says he's ready to come back.
So he's an MMA promoter now.
Yeah,
he doesn't have
right. He's signing the checks and he's scouting everybody right now.
That's a rematch, though, I would love to see. That UFC 143 fight, I can't remember a decision that was debated so intensely coming out of a fight than that one.
Yeah, and I just love the technical matchup of these two. They're both dual specialists. They both, are great on the feet, have a really beautiful, polished Muay Thai game, and both are really, really good on the ground. Wrestling has never been either of their dominant game, but they match up really, really nicely. One real interesting thing is sometimes Kampmann starts slow in that traditional Muay Thai, like a slow start, and sometimes Condit starts really, really fast. So it could be explosive in the first few minutes, but just stylistically, great matchup.
You wanted to touch on ONE FC going back to Friday in the Philippines, presenting their 9th show, Rise to Power, and a few surprises, and for Phil Baroni, a very literal bad break for him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate he sustained that ankle injury, but it was a great fight up until that point. Phil Baroni, I'd rather watch this guy fight than half of the UFC roster. He brings it every time. He obviously has that pro wrestling element to his game. Yeah. He entertains the crowd, and then when he steps in there, he is ready to throw down, very similar to Wanderlei Silva. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Phil Baroni should be going anywhere. I think he's just so exciting.
Yeah, man. I mean, how can you not be a fan of this guy? Just the way he interacts on Twitter with his fans, his blogs, the way he fights, the way he looks, everything. This guy has the whole package. But, you're starting to see a lot of these great warriors that we're familiar with start to go down with injuries and stuff. And for Phil, man, this is a serious injury. He could be out 6 or 8 months, gain a lot of weight. He's 15 and 17 in his career. You'd love to see the guy, because he loves doing it, like a Jens Pulver, loves fighting, to be able to keep doing it, feeding his family with it. But, you don't want to see these guys get that hurt either. It's a shame to see a guy get that kind of injury.
And it also, timing-wise, Dave Meltzer at MMA Fighting, he was reporting that, Phil Baroni and Bellator look to have a deal in place. So with an ankle injury, that is going to throw any of those plans kind of out the window, depending on how long the rehab is. Speaking of people walking wounded, Antonio Rogério Nogueira is off of the UFC 161 card, which, much like the Calgary card last year at 149, just seems to be falling apart each week with another guy out. Now that we have to find a replacement for Shogun, who on 2 weeks' notice, do you think that they can find a light heavyweight to step up in that amount of time that is not named Ilir Latifi?
Well, Chael Sonnen says he's ready to take that fight, and a word is that Glover Teixeira could be ready to take that fight against Shogun. People were talking about Teixeira taking on Shogun in the past. Shogun said he just didn't have a big enough name. Well, a win over Rampage Jackson and a submission win over Tahuna in his last fight. Now people know who this guy is. I think people would be excited about this fight, considering, that Winnipeg's taken a big hit with the Wineland and Barao fight being off, and now this fight with Nogueira.
Hey, man, you could also take Ryan Jimmo and move him up and give him a really, really tough fight. Canadians love Canadians. You could definitely make that move. But let me tell you, Winnipeg fans, they know fighting. They'll care about the undercard. They'll care about all the guys on this. This is the kind of place where, you never like to see certain fights fall off a card, but Winnipeg could care less. That arena is going to go crazy.
Can Joe Dirksen make 205?
Man, Joe Dirksen's probably walking around at about 300 right now, but he could cut the weight. That's a great idea. Joe Dirksen in that fight.
A story that also came out last week that is going to have an immediate impact because of this weekend's card in Brazil is that WADA recently changed their standards of what is allowable in terms of marijuana metabolites in your system, and we've talked about this so many times. And the UFC is also going to make this change for their international shows, going from 50 nanograms per milliliter to 150, meaning that if you smoke probably 3 or 4 weeks out, like Pat Healy, you're probably not going to get dinged if the UFC is overseeing things, or Brazil.
So what you're saying, Thiago Silva is going to be safe then, right?
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot.
It should be noted that Nick Diaz and Takanori Gomi, Nick Diaz still would have failed under this test. He came in with over 150 for that 2007 fight.
Yeah, man. Nick Diaz is going to fail regardless. The dude likes to smoke weed. That's just how it is. But, we've talked about this a lot of times. This is not a performance enhancer. And it's not the job of a commission to, police people's actions that are not in any way connected to fighting. So this is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that it is about time, and hopefully some of the other commissions within the U.S. and Canada will follow suit. Anyway, as we wrap things up, interest level quickly for this card coming up Saturday. This one has completely fallen under the radar, but you are just tickled.
Come on, Minotauro Nogueira, one of the greatest fighters of all time. This is a guy that throws down, is not afraid to engage, especially against Fabrizio Verdum, a guy he's beaten in the past. But we have Verdum, who's absolutely surging, a man that a lot of people consider to be the top 3, top 5 best heavyweights in the world. It is going to be a barn burner.
I think it's going to be a tough night for Nogueira fans.
No way.
But we have Fight News Now Extra coming at you right now.